G'day, I'm Paul. So one of the staples in the bigger SUV segment is the Toyota Kluger, also known as the Toyota Highlander in some markets. This is a car that sells in big numbers in Australia, and it has finally received a big update. It also now comes with a hybrid, which is first for Australia for the Kluger, and I'm pretty excited about that because of how good the RAV4 hybrid is. This competes with things like, well, I don't know, it sits in the same segment as a Santa Fe, but it's actually more sized like a Hyundai Palisade. So this is bigger than some of the competitors in this segment. This one here is the Grande Hybrid all-wheel drive. It's priced at just over $75,000. Today we're going to do a detailed review of this car. If you do want to skip ahead to other parts of this review, you can use the time codes up on the screen there. Or if you're on YouTube, just scroll down and use the chapters below. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to our channel so you can find out every single time we drive something that sells really well in Australia. Now let's talk exterior design. So you've got 8 colours to pick from, all but black is an additional $675. Now what about the design itself? I think it's a really smart step forward. So the last Kluger never actually looked that bad, and I think this has just a bit more of a classier design to it. So you can see softer edges, a little bit more chrome. And because this is the hybrid model, as you would know from our other Toyota hybrid videos, you get this blue background on that Toyota logo. You've got that 3D sort of embossed piano black section up the front there, and overall I think it just really has a nice appearance to it. Over here you have a set of full LED headlights. It is a little disappointing this doesn't have matrix LED lights. For 75 grand you would think that modern technology like that would really be fitted here. Let's jump over to the wheels. Over here you have a set of 20-inch alloy wheels. I think this is quite a nice design. It's got that sort of brushed chrome look to it, and I think it really sort of gives it that classy appearance. You've got a little bit of plastic wheel arch cladding here on the sides. This certainly isn't an off-road model. You've got other Toyota vehicles that will do off-road stuff, but I'll run you through some of the features they have fitted to this if you do find yourself down on a dirt track once we're out onto the road. Along the side here, you've got another hybrid badge there, indicator built into the wing mirror with a little bit more of a chrome highlight. You've got privacy glass, roof rails, a panoramic glass roof here on the top spec Grande model, and then come around to the back. Around here, you've got more LED built into this back section, but it is a little bit disappointing. They sort of went a little halfway with things like the indicators and the reverse lights. These are incandescent globes. So I really think they should just be going all out with LEDs. I don't know why they mix that technology. It really is strange. Up the top there, you have a shark fin antenna and then a little bit of a spoiler built into the rear. Overall, the design hasn't changed a great deal over the last generation, but I think they have tidied it up nicely so that on this new platform, it looks different enough and appealing out on the road. So we are inside the Kluger. Let's kick off with the key. Here it is. So front of the key, lock, unlock, boot, and then panic. Nothing on the sides there, but on the back you have the Toyota symbol and Kluger as well. It's a proximity sensing key, and that is where your push button start is. Okay, so big step forward from the previous generation of Kluger. You can see here that the design has really they've really beefed it up. You can see the American design as well. So this car is really popular in the States, and I kind of feel that this has that American vibe to it. I am spotting a lot of piano black though. Have a look at that. It is sort of all over the place here, and then sort of down the sides there on the steering wheel as well. I don't know why they persist with it, but it's there anyway. Now, what about the materials? So yes, they have gone to a lot of effort with the design, and for the most part, they're actually pretty good. So they've got that rubber with fake stitching up the top there, but randomly, there are some materials around the cabin like this that are just really hard plastic, and I don't know why you would persist with that when the rest of this is quite nicely presented. But I do like down here in these storage areas, it's got like this grippy padded surface to it, and then you have drop downs as well to get cables through to charging ports. So that's all pretty cool. I do like the wood grain. It is sort of old school Toyota and glossy. It would have been nice to see some open pore wood, but I think this is a nice addition to the car. Now, what about the touch points? So this center console here, another rubber material, soft to the touch. Same story with the door. How soft are the materials? Well, we've tested all of the main surfaces in this car with our durometer. If you want to see how this compares to other cars that we've tested before, have a look at the link in the description below. Finally, build quality. What's it like? Let's have a little play here. Yeah. I don't know, I did notice a rattle down there before when I was driving and had the stereo cranked. This is all a bit sort of move aroundy. Yeah, I don't know. This is built in the States now, so perhaps that has something to do with it. But yeah, I don't know. Let's see how it goes in a couple of years' time. Now, let's talk infotainment. This is going to be important because you are using this car as a family car. You want all of the best gear that you can get. Well, unfortunately, Toyota doesn't quite give you that, even in the top specification Grande model. So while you do get a bigger 12-point-something inch screen in the States, we're relegated with this thing, which genuinely looks just a bit comical in comparison. It even looks like an aftermarket system they've put in place here. It just doesn't look right. It's an 8-inch screen. It just looks too small for this area, and surely in a brand new car, the top spec $75,000 model, you would put the best infotainment system you can. That even then follows on to charging with your phone. We don't even get wireless phone charging, which you do get in the States. So a little bit disappointing that they have shortchanged us there. But in terms of the infotainment system itself, 8-inch screen, you've got your shortcut buttons on the side here. It comes with AM, FM and DAB plus digital radio. You also have satellite navigation built into the screen too, and smartphone mirroring as well in the form of Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Both of those systems are wired. I'll show you what Apple CarPlay looks like first. So full screen integration. It works okay. It's just a tiny bit laggy as you flick through the different screens there. And this is what Android Auto looks like. There you go, full screen as well. Same sort of lagginess you can see there as I move my finger up and down, and it's just a little bit slow to react. On the audio front as well, you also get an 11-speaker JBL branded sound system. Now, ahead of the driver is another display. This here gives you a lot of your trip computer information. It also gives you more information about the EV modes, fuel economy, and then you can also go through to safety settings and navigation as well. Righto, moving on to safety. So, autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection. You have a lane departure warning, a lane keeping assistant, blind spot monitoring built into the wing mirror, rear cross traffic alert and radar cruise control. Now, I will point out as well that with the radar cruise control, there is like a lane assist feature where it holds the car in its lane and I guess turns the steering for you as well. It started off working okay, but what I noticed is as you get to light bends on freeways, sometimes it doesn't compensate enough for the corner, and what you end up doing is kind of pinballing through the corner. So you'll come up to like a right-hander, it'll get really close to the left line, it'll then overcompensate by steering too much towards the right, and then it hits the line on the right, and then I don't know, if you were following the car, it would look like you were drunk or something like that. So I don't know, that system really requires work, and I just switch it off when I've got radar cruise control running. Now, in terms of parking, you have front and rear parking sensors and a 360 camera. So let's see what that looks like. The quality's not amazing. It's pretty low quality. At night time as well, it's quite hard to see out of. You do get those guidelines though with the steering, and you can see it gives you an indication of where your wheels are going to travel. Then you have a couple of different views, a wide angle view and then a slightly narrower but larger view. So look, it's okay, it does the job, but I think that could be much better, especially for a car that's brand new on a brand new platform. Now, quick interjection. The Kluger, it was previously only available as a V6 in Australia, and I think that ruled it out of a lot of customers because you don't really want a petrol guzzling V6 in a vehicle this size. A lot of people went for diesel alternatives. Now that this is a hybrid and allegedly a very efficient one, we'll test that out shortly, would you put this back on your shopping list instead of going for a diesel? If you ruled it out previously, let me know in the comments section below. I'm keen to get your feedback. Moving on to practicality, and we'll start with our USB charge points. Family car, you want to have plenty of USB charging, and they have decked it out. So down the front here, you have a 12-volt outlet, two 2.1 amp USB-A chargers, and then a secondary USB-A slot for your smartphone mirroring. Inside the center console here, you have another 12-volt outlet as well. So really nicely featured, and it means you're going to be able to keep all of your devices charged. In terms of storage, where are you going to put your phone? Well, your phone can easily live there in the cup holders. You've got a slot up there, slot here, slot down here. This is where the wireless phone charging would be in the American market, which we don't get. In terms of storage of the rest of your things, our coffee cup fits in nicely down the front there. You've also got some teeth to hold it into place. Let's see how it fits. Our water bottle. That fits in beautifully. We've got our Whopper water bottle as well. It won't really fit into there. Let's see if it fits inside the doors. It doesn't really fit into there very well. In terms of the actual storage compartments, you've got one down here next to the driver's knee, a center console here. This thing is enormous. So you've got a little tray for your coins, but then goes down all the way. So Watch this, it'll make that bottle completely disappear. I had a loaf of bread in here the other day, standing upright. It gives you an idea of how much room there is in there. Even that full bottle fits in nicely. Then if we close that lid, you have a glove box here as well. It easily fits your bottle in without any dramas. And finally, you have a sunglasses holder up the top. Let's talk about comfort. So you get 3 zones of climate control. This is where you control everything. I quite like these switches. If you ignore the piano black, they're pretty cool in terms of the way they work. One push of that brings up all the displays. You've got heated seats and cooled seats for the first row. There's an electric driver's seat adjustment with memory, and then electric seat adjustment for the passenger. You also get that pretty cool looking panoramic glass roof here as well. Then in terms of the seats, I think these look pretty cool. So they've got those perforations for the cooling, but the design of them actually looks quite high-end and premium. So for 75 grand, I guess you'd expect that, but I think they're a nice looking seat. In terms of the steering, you have both tilt and reach adjustment. And let's do a reach test. Can't really reach that stuff while I'm driving just this side. But if you lean forward, you can grab it all. Okay, second row, this is where the kids are going to be predominantly. And I tell you what, there is stacks of room back here. So let's start off with the basics. I have loads of knee room, and that's with this seat being pretty much all the way back. I have loads of toe room, and headroom is pretty good. In terms of connectivity, the kids have 2 2.1 amp sockets down the bottom here for USB-A charging. Then in terms of storage, you have map pockets in the back of the seats. You have a center armrest here with 2 cup holders. Try our bottle in there. That fits without any dramas. Fits nicely inside the door too. We'll try a big bottle inside the door as well. Nope, that does not fit. Then on the comfort front, you have your 3rd zone of climate control here. So you can turn that up and down and then select your fan speed too. Then your air vents are built into the roof here as well. Blinds, have a look at this. You have a set of blinds here to keep the sun out. In terms of the seats, they move forwards and backwards in a 60-40. You can also recline as well, which I kind of like. And by the way, the benefit of having the hybrid drivetrain is that you don't get a massive hump here in the center if you were to have a mechanical driveline running through the center of the car. So it means you can kind of slide over that with ease. And then if you do have little ones inside the car, ISOFIX points are on the 2 outboard seats, and then you have 3 top tether points, one behind each of these second row seats. Now, let's jump into the 3rd row because I'm keen to see whether I can fit in there, because I could fit in the Palisade. So let's see what it's like here in the Kluger. Okay, so kids, how are you going to get in and out? So it's a simple pull of this handle, drops the seat forward, and then you slide it out of the way. So it's pretty straightforward to get the seats up. You just lift that and then lift the headrest. Same story on this side, but what I'll do is just tilt that back a touch. There is a little grab handle as well if you need it. All right, let's try and climb in. It's not really an adult-friendly spot to get in and out of. Let me just reposition that a touch. So as you can see here, it is pretty cramped here for an adult. It's not like the Palisade where you actually have room as an adult to kind of stretch out. You do get cup holders off to the sides here, but as far as I can tell, there are no USB points here. You do get these air vents above your head, and let's just see what it's like. If I move this back. Yeah, look, it's okay, but I don't know. I don't think I'd want to be spending too much time here, and getting in and out through that little gap is tricky to do for someone who's plus sized. Okay, let's talk about cargo space. It has a power tailgate. Wait for that to come up. So being a 3-row SUV, you would think that you're going to be a little compromised in terms of space, but it's actually not too bad back here compared to what some of these are. Under here you have storage for the cargo blind, and then you've got a little bit of extra storage if you have any valuables. In terms of the space, it's around 250 litres, and that's up to the window line. I'll show you what it looks like with our bags in there. I'll be curious to see if we can actually fit our luggage in. Yes, beautiful, excellent news. Now, if you do drop the 3rd row, I'll show you what that looks like. That increases to around 550 litres, and it's an almost flat floor. I'll show you again what that looks like with our bags in. There it is. And again, that's 550 litres up to the window line. If you do want that extra little bit of space, what you can also do is fold the 2nd row flat, and that opens up the space to around 1100 litres, again, only to the window line. So we're on the road now in the Kluger Hybrid. So let's start off with the drivetrain, because I think that's what most of you are going to be interested about. So this is powered by a 2.5 litre naturally aspirated 4-cylinder petrol engine. Just the petrol engine alone makes 142 kilowatts of power and 242 newton meters of torque, but it's supplemented by a hybrid system. That hybrid system is powered by 3 electric motors. 2 of them live on the front axle and 1 lives on the rear axle. So you've got your petrol engine plus the 2 electric motors up front plus 1 at the rear. That provides you a combined power output of 184 kilowatts of power. Now there is no combined torque figure because that happens at varying points throughout that rev band, so they don't normally provide that. That's all plumbed through an eCVT, which is not a conventional CVT. There's no belts, there's nothing like that that makes it just like any other CVT. This is a system that Toyota's been using for quite some time now. And it's quite a clever system because it utilizes the electric motors on the front axle at different times to perform different functions. So, as an example, you can use one of the electric motors to drive the car on EV alone. That's what we're doing right now. There's no internal combustion engine active. We're just cruising along using the stored energy inside the battery. Then you can also use the other electric motor to smooth out transitions between petrol and hybrid modes. And also now when I go to kick that on, it's really nice and smooth. So one of those is used for that as well. And then finally, you can use the rear electric motor to give you that power boost too when you need it. I know it's all a little bit confusing, but what it does mean is that you have a really smart hybrid system that takes up less room and also gives you fuel efficiency. Toyota claims 5.6 litres of fuel used per 100 kilometres on the combined cycle, and I think that is simply remarkable. Let's see what we're achieving. So we're currently sitting on 6.3 litres per 100 Ks. Just take a second to soak that up. This is a car that weighs over 2 tonnes, which is pretty remarkable. Also keep in mind that today it's been absolutely freezing. So while we've been testing this and also the Mazda MX-30, we've had the cars running a little longer stationary. So this has been using probably 10% more fuel than what you would expect it to use. I think that figure is still absolutely remarkable for a vehicle this size. So in terms of the hybrid components, it really manages everything on its own. You can see this gauge on the left-hand side. When I ride the brake, it goes into the charge zone, and that's when it fills that small battery for later use. And that's really useful when you are traveling at low speeds. And I've used this analogy before, and if you want to see a video we shot explaining the analogy and how this actually works in hybrids, click up here. But if you've ever pushed a box on carpet, a heavy box, it takes a lot of effort to get it moving initially. Once it's moving though, it's easy to keep moving. And it's the same story with hybrids. They use the electric energy stored inside a battery to get the car moving off a standing start. Then the internal combustion engine kicks on. It means that you're not using petrol to do the most energy intensive part of that process, which is getting the car moving to start with. And then as you move throughout your throttle range, it goes between eco and then over to power when you're getting the full assistance of the hybrid components. It's also a full EV mode as well. You can hit that button to put the car into full EV mode, but keep in mind it really doesn't work all that long. The second you give it a little bit more throttle, the petrol engine kicks on and then it's all over. There is also a trail mode as well that Toyota says improves traction on slippery surfaces. Now let me know in the comments section below, do you guys want us to do kind of like a light off-road test similar to what we do with dual cab utes and four-wheel drives, but for these SUVs to see how good these modes actually are? Let me know in the comments section below, and if enough of you want it, it's something we'll organise. It's also worth noting that with the hybrid system, it can send up to 100% of torque to the front axle and then up to 80% of torque to the rear axle, depending on traction and throttle loads as well. Now, let's talk drive modes. You don't really have that many to choose from. You've got sport mode, normal, and eco. Eco, of course, dulls air conditioning and slows everything down. Pop it into sport mode though. I'm keen to see how this feels behind the wheel. Give that a punch. Look, it's okay, but not amazing. If I give that another kick, it responds nice and fast. Even torque steers, which is a little bit random. Hold on a second, let me just slow down a bit here and just give this another stab. That is so weird. It's torque steering. I've never really had a car, an all-wheel drive car torque steer, even to the point where when you accelerate from a standing start with a little bit of wheel lock, it just spins up the inside wheel before the rear axle even activates. Which I find really strange, given the rear axle doesn't have a mechanical linkage, so you could in theory activate it immediately as you sense that traction loss at the front. So I don't know, I think a bit of work could be done there, but let's put it up against the stopwatch and see how it goes from 0 to 100. Now you can even see there from the 0 to 100, it loses traction off the line, which an all-wheel drive car really shouldn't do. So yeah, I think they need a little bit of work with that all-wheel drive calibration. What happens when you do sort of punt it through the corners? Look, it is pretty soft around the edges. It's not going to win any handling awards, and I guess that's what the Kluger has always been like. But even on this new TNGA platform, it really has no sportiness built into it, which I think is fine for a vehicle like this. It's not a great deal of steering feel either, and you still get that sort of jittery torque steer feel if you lay on the throttle midway through a corner. So yeah, you're not going to be doing any fast driving in this, and I guess that's okay. Now, what about the ride? Kluger, big family bus. You want it to really ride nicely with the kids and all your stuff on board. Look, it actually rides really softly, so that's good in and around the city when you're attacking speed humps and doing that kind of thing. It really only falls apart when you're out in the country and you're hitting those continuous undulations. It really doesn't have a great deal of body control when the speeds pick up and the road gets a little bit choppy. So yeah, it's really not that impressive in those situations, but in and around the city, it is nice and soft and very compliant and comfortable. And I think that's exactly what you're after. When you've got this thing loaded with all your belongings for a trip away, you really want to feel nice and comfortable inside, and I think it meets that brief. In terms of road noise, look, there is a bit of noise that comes into the cabin, and with the TNGA stuff, they've actually managed to make it feel really quiet. But I think there's just probably a little too much coming into the car at the moment. I'm getting a lot of road noise on coarse chip surfaces, and then the engine can get really thrashy as well when you get stuck into it. That's the inherent nature of a CVT. It really likes to sit in the peak torque band of the internal combustion engine, and that unfortunately is often a noisy point for naturally aspirated engines like this one. Let's talk visibility. So out the front, it's good. Out the sides, it's excellent. Those wing mirrors are huge. You've got a blind spot monitor built into them as well. Visibility out the rear is also good, but when you do have that third row up, visibility can be a little compromised by those headrests. In terms of towing, there's a 2,000 kilogram braked towing capacity, and if you are doing any off-road driving, you have a 208 millimeter ground clearance. Finally, turning circle, 11.4 meters, which is actually pretty good for a big SUV. So Toyota Kluger, look, I think this is a huge step forward compared to the last generation, especially with that hybrid drivetrain. I remember every single time I drove the old Kluger, I'd love it, but then you had to pay the fuel bill. It was such a thirsty car. Now it's completely different. You're using half the fuel that you did in the previous generation V6, and even the new V6, it's still better, but still quite thirsty. So they're the positives. The negatives though, I mean, Toyota has completely skimped on the decent infotainment system. We're missing some of the features that you can get out of this car in the States. And at 75 grand, I would expect features like wireless phone charging. I mean, I just don't understand why Toyota skimps on that stuff for Australia. I also wish the hybrid system had just a little bit more poke. We tested it just with me and Igor on board, and it was kind of a little underdone. I think if you load that with people and luggage, it's going to feel positively slow, especially when it comes to things like overtaking. So look, I really like the Kluger, but I don't love it, and I especially don't love it at 75 grand. I think it is a fair ask for the Grande. Perhaps have a look at the lower end of the price range if you do want to see a little bit more value, especially in that hybrid trim. Now, if you did enjoy this video, make sure you hit the like button, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel so you can find out every single time we publish one of these. But until next time, take it easy.